And now joining us over Zoom with his perspective on the verdict and sentencing is Tre Lovell. Thank you again for joining us now. Let's talk about what happens next, continue that conversation. And first, let me ask for your reaction with what happened yesterday and the jury not being certain of this racketeering charge. Were you surprised this morning when the verdict finally came out?
I was surprised in light of what happened yesterday, because the fact that they had come to a unanimous decision on the sex trafficking, but we're trying to figure out the racketeering, led me to believe that they had a conviction on those, and they're just trying to see if it goes up the extra step of the ladder. But to find out that they were actually considered racketeering after having already decided he did not commit the sex trafficking, that was a little bit of a surprise. So the order was a little concerning, but in terms of the overall verdict, no, I wasn't surprised about that at all.
Okay, what about the sentencing, which we are obviously awaiting for 10 years max per that charge? He has served already about a year, right, in prison. How is this going to play a factor?
Yeah, so you're right. It's a maximum of 10 years per count. This is his first offense. The judge is going to take that into consideration. And I think the judge is also going to take into consideration, to an extent, that he wasn't convicted of the other charges. And so I think, being a first-time offender, we could be looking at 2 or 3 years per count. I don't know if the judge is going to throw the book at him on this, but certainly it's a much lesser sentence than the other two.
And Tre, I have a question. I'm curious, for anyone who spoke out, any of the witnesses, because there was 34 witnesses, if they're afraid of any retaliation in the future, are there any protective orders to keep the witnesses that took the stand safe in the future?
I don't know if there's anything in place, but they certainly can come to the court for a temporary restraining order or some other affirmative relief if they're getting threatened, if they're getting harassed. You know, the court is protective of that. The court is very protective of jurors, very protective of witnesses. So at this point, there's probably no need to put that in place, since we haven't heard of any threats. But if that does happen, then they absolutely, anything from going to the police to going to the court for a temporary restraining order and even more.
Okay.
Tre, thank you. Appreciate your perspective. Appreciate you joining us. What is the one thing, I guess, before we let you go, that you're watching right now, the top thing that you have your eyes on?
Well, I'm going to see with the bail hearing. That's at 2 o'clock.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting because, you know, initially when he was arrested, they tried to get bail because there was a fear of him tampering with witnesses and changing facts and things like that. Well, that's no longer there. But what is different is we have a conviction. So I'm leaning towards they're probably going to let him out on bail. They'll probably be able to come with a bond package that meets the concerns of the court in terms of him being a flight risk, you know, putting enough money down as a bond, taking away his passport, restricting his travel. So there are certain things that they can present to the judge that probably will allow him to go out on bail. But that's the next step, and that's a really serious step for him and the family, because we don't know when the sentencing hearing is going to be set. It could be months down the road, and he's certainly going to want his freedom until then.
Do you think, because we are maybe anticipating some civil lawsuits, do you think that he's going to try to get his affairs in order with his business and his empire and try to move some things around maybe so that people can't come after him for the big lump sums, maybe put them in trust for his children?
Oh, he's already done that. I'm
you
sure.
think so?
Yeah.
He's ahead of it. He saw it coming down the pipeline, huh?
Absolutely. Asset protection is huge. He's trying to structure his assets, get things out of his name, get things in trust in certain forms, so that it's going to be very difficult to enforce a judgment and come after him. And they work. You know, enforcement of judgment and collection is its own animal. So getting a judgment doesn't always mean you're gonna collect. So, you know, he's dealing with the civil cases, certainly, but I have no doubt that he has restructured assets, restructured property, how it's held, in anticipation of adverse findings in the civil cases.
All right, Tre, thank you. Appreciate your perspective. Our eyes are, of course, at 2 o'clock our time. We'll see what unfolds, keeping an eye on the story throughout the day. Take care.
Thank you.